This is an RNZ podcast.
Kia ora, hello and welcome along to the Music 101 interview podcast. I'm Charlotte Ryan. I host Music 101 every Saturday on RNZ National, which is our flagship music show. Every week I interview amazing artists, introduce you to new songs and get other people to pick their favourite music too. But this podcast features our wonderful interviews that we do on Music 101 without the music. Today's interview is with M. Ward. He's an American singer-songwriter and guitarist. He grew up in California but now is based in Portland, Oregon. His sound is a real mixture of folk and blues. He's very inspired by analogue recordings, using the 4-track, and he's released 12 solo studio albums since 1999. But he was also in the band She and Him with Zooey Deschanel and Monsters of Folk, who you might have heard of too. But the reason why I'm celebrating M. Ward this week is because this month he's just released a best of compilation. It's called For Beginners, the Best of M. Ward, and it features tracks from his albums over the years, including the incredible slow woozy cover of David Bowie's song Let's Dance. M. Ward is very thoughtful, conscious, very sort of holistic when it comes to themes for his album. And last year he released Supernatural Thing, an album, as you'll hear, inspired by M. Ward's love of radio and the sort of supernatural occurrences that happen when songs are transmitted to people and the possible effect that the music can have on listeners' mood and emotions. I love this. We talk about it greatly. Supernatural Thing, many say, was one of his best albums in years. It featured collaborations with First Aid Kit and Echo Case, so I was so stoked to talk to him. And as you'll hear, he was very chatty. Here is M. Ward speaking to me from Portland about his new album and his shared love of radio.
The way I discovered music was through radio when I was just a tiny kid. And over the years, ever since I started writing songs, I just keep going back to this vision I had of radio when I was growing up. And it's very pure, very simplistic, very powerful. And I think it changed my life. It sounds like it changed your life. And it's still something that my music revolves around.
Yeah, tell me what you mean by simplistic. Do you mean that in the style of sound that you hear through radio?
Well, when I, first heard music as a kid, my understanding of it was very simplistic. I had no idea, how this music was entering my car radio or my portable radio. And so the childlike mind imagines it coming from somewhere that you can't understand. And it had a bit of magic to it. And music still has that for me. I think it happens to most people where you're driving down the road and you hear a song and it, completely changes how you see yourself or how you see a friend or a loved one or the place that you're driving through or the place that you're from. And it's really hard to pinpoint a specific reason why music has this power over us. But I think if it influences you as a kid, then it's especially strong.
I love those moments. I think even, as a radio host, I crave those moments or dream of those moments of playing a song and, changing the atmosphere out there or something. Is that what you've sort of hoped to do with this album in a sense?
Absolutely. My idea is for this record is, in my opinion, a second chapter to a record I made years ago called Transistor Radio, where I was trying to, in my mind, recreate the feeling I had of radio when I was a kid into something more tangible, which is, the album. I remember radio having so many surprises from song to song, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to include so many different voices on this new record and production styles and different writers.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so true. I mean, it's definitely an M. Ward album, but it almost changes genres and, you can hear different influences of different genres.
I have a great love for so many different kinds of sounds, and it ends up coming out when I'm making these records. There's so much at our fingertips as a music producer. I love the challenge of making things that don't seem to fit together back to back. The way that a great radio program is, the way that some of my favorite records like the White Album are, full of surprises. And that's the challenge, is making things surprising but still fitting together.
Does this thought process with the radio and everything, did that contribute to the production of the album at all? Did you want to produce a certain sound on any of the tracks? You know, especially when we were younger, listening to transistor radios, but it was a different sound that came out compared to studio sounds, say, or the modern sounds of today.
Yes, I love playing with analog as well as digital, but mainly analog. The feeling of music you hear from different decades is something that I love. And playing with that in the studio is just another technique to make the songs come alive in my own mind. And to be able to do that in the studio is one of my favorite things about making records. I find that so many records that I've made recently, they just stick with one sound. And I feel like my favorite records are a little bit more playful. Let's just use that word.
They take you on a real journey rather than being familiar sounding, or
Yes,
not familiar, but yeah,
yes,
same.
yes. I think we should be surprised the way that a good book surprises us, or a great painting. You don't want to know what's around every corner or what happens in the next chapter. So it's something I put myself into when I'm making a record is to put that challenge on in front of me. A couple of years ago, right when the first vaccines were being rolled out, I had this Elvis encounter on a train, and he told me only one phrase, and that was "go anywhere I please." And so I woke up in the morning, and this song happened in about 30 minutes. I lived with it for a while, and it seemed to have some kind of message for me, maybe sent from my subconscious. I really don't know, but this feeling of being able to travel anywhere again is pretty miraculous and something that we take for granted. I think during COVID, it was a reminder of how important it is to be able to move freely, and I think that's a little bit about where the song "Supernatural" theme comes from.
Do you have a home studio?
I have a home demo studio, but I prefer to record in proper studios. Portland, Vancouver, and for this record, I did a bit in Stockholm and London and a bit in Los Angeles.
Yes, because was it Stockholm where you recorded First Aid Kit?
Yes, that was my first time collaborating with them in a studio. I've just been lifelong fans of their records and their voices, and just the energy that they have in studio and on stage. It was a great thrill for me to meet them out there and see them in their element.
Yeah. So did you sort of imagine their vocals with yours or their voice tone with yours?
Yes, just spending time with their records and seeing them live, I just started hearing their voices for these two specific songs
Mm.
on the record. One is Engine 5, and the other one is called Too Young to Die. And, it's always a roll of the dice. You never know exactly how it's going to sound when you bring in these surprises. And I'm happy to say it couldn't have gone any better. And they're two of my favorite songs on the record.
This album is fantastic. Like I was just reading reviews. Is it getting more attention than your other albums? Does it feel, or is it just because I'm obsessed with it at the moment?
In general, I stay quite oblivious to the reaction, except when I'm talking to journalists, radio stations, or things that I have on my plate on that given day. I feel in general that praise and criticism doesn't really help me much at all in the long run. So I stay oblivious, happily oblivious.
Can we please talk about David Bowie? Because on this new album, Supernatural Thing, you've done another David Bowie cover from his final album. It's such an incredible song. Tell me about the process of picking I Can't Give Everything Away.
I feel very indebted to his music. I've learned his catalog over the years, and just by listening to his records, I feel like I've learned a lot about the possibilities of music. And this was as I understand it, the last song he ever recorded for his last record. And it's a beautiful song. I think there's a bit of magic in it when I listened to this record, and I felt like he was part of the point maybe of why he made this record is because he wanted it to come from a great beyond, because he passed away so soon after the release. So this specific song has a lot of power to it, and it's a beautiful melody. My version of it was an experiment to see what would happen if we took out the lyrics and just made it an instrumental. I really didn't have any intention of releasing it. I will record dozens of songs to make a record and pick the ones that seem to fit the best. And this one seemed like a great kind of breath or intermission between side A and side B.
Is writing for you like a job? When you wake up in the morning, do you sort of go into your studio like someone would go into an office for the day?
Instead of going into a studio, I'm lucky to just have my guitar or any keyboard. It's easier for me to travel with guitar and digital demo making recording devices, my phone, my computer. But the writing is always happening. It's always been that way since I was a teenager, and it's what I spend most of my life doing is writing and editing old songs, and producing records, performing. Traveling is a big part of it, but the biggest part is writing and editing, and I love it. I can't complain. I get to do it anywhere I am in the world, and that's an incredible benefit.
It's so great learning more about the album. Thank you so much for your time. And yes, please come to New Zealand.
It was great to speak with you, and definitely hope to see you next year, if not sooner.
I was speaking to M. Ward for Music 101. He was speaking to me from Portland back in 2023 when he just released his album Supernatural Thing. You must go and listen to that album after you've heard this interview, actually. It's such a brilliant album. Many people say it's his best yet. And then perhaps if you love it, go to that new Best Of compilation, which has just been released. M. Ward, it's called For Beginners, the best of M. Ward. I really hope he returns to New Zealand soon to play live. I'd love to see him. I'll be back on RNZ this Saturday from 1 p.m, hosting the show live. We'll have many more wonderful interviews with musicians. But in the meantime, if you love this podcast, make sure you follow us and forward it to any friends that you think might like these music interviews too. Until then, take care.